This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. Do you guys remember back in January when they had the California wildfires and Harry and Meghan thought they were so important to show up for that photo shoot? You know, the PR stunt that they pulled. And everybody was calling them disaster tourists. Well, I made a comment saying that it's more than likely Harry and Meghan were showing up to make sure that they're in front of Gavin Newsom's face, because when those billions start dropping for, rebuilding California, they would be like the first in line. And then again in May, I went ahead and brought this up, indicating that it might be that Archwell is trying to secure funds from the state level since USAID had been cut off. I think many of us have noticed that this year, Harry and Meghan are not going on their faux royal tours and blessing the vulnerable and impoverished with their presence. We saw what they did with Colombia. We saw what they did with Nigeria. No doubt in my mind, all of that had been funded by money somehow being laundered through USAID. For us to really know for sure, there definitely needs to be a full audit of Archwell Fugazi Public Charity. But anyway, we all know this. Back to the point I'm going to try and make here now is that I did say don't be surprised if now we start seeing Harry and Meghan doing a lot of work in California. Well, sure enough, surprise, surprise, on the Archwell Fugazi Public Charity's website, published for August 2025, Civics Unplugged Fellows drive bold vision for the future at Civic Innovation Academy, of which it says, at the Archwell Fugazi Public Charity, we believe uplifting youth voices and listening to their solutions is key to building a better world, online and off. Civics Unplugged operates with the same core belief. Youth leadership is essential to creating a more abundant future. Their programs empower high school age students with tools and resources to tackle pressing issues facing their communities. Last week, Civics Unplugged welcomed 25 high school fellows from across the country to Los Angeles for their second Civics Innovation Academy of the summer, an immersive program that trains young leaders to build a better future through systems thinking, civic collaboration, and bold innovation. So let me just interject real quick. Civics Unplugged is another one of these leftist organizations that is promoting activism in areas such as politics, climate, culture, and technology. And of course, the people funding it are the usual suspects like Craig Newmark Foundation and the Rockefeller Brother Fund, in addition to Archwell Fugazi Public Charity. And what I find that these groups are doing is that they're grooming and cultivating the most irritating generation out there. Think about how irritating the past 4 years have been, seeing Greta Thunberg's face everywhere for climate change and no justice, no peace garbage. Anyway, back to this shite with Archwell Fugazi Public Charity. Throughout the week-long intensive, fellows explored some of the most pressing issues facing modern cities, ranging from housing affordability and high-speed transportation to tech-forward energy abundance and climate-resilient infrastructure. Working in small groups, they developed 5 civically innovative proposals aimed at solving complex urban challenges in LA. Number 1, energy abundance and climate goals. Exploring technologies like AI-optimized grids, microgrids, and geothermal power. Participants propose sustainable energy frameworks to help LA exceed its climate goals under our county plan. Number 2, housing affordability and policy. Fellows analyze successful zoning reform and permitting changes in cities like Austin to propose durable, equity-focused policies for affordable housing in, you guessed it, Los Angeles. The best one that we have here is the climate-resilient housing. In response to the recent Altadena fires, fellows developed a resilient rebuilding blueprint that addresses the intersections of housing, redefining, and the wildland-urban interface, or WUI. I mean, seriously, these two grifters are so predictable. Obviously, there's a lot of money going into California right now to rebuild, like I said at the beginning in January. I mean, I think almost 10 billion is being put into California to do all of this stuff that all of a sudden Archwell just cares about, right? Showing up and doing good, taking taxpayer money indirectly. Now, don't forget, I also said that watch, now that Trump is in office and he is against the whole human trafficking and, the children, we're going to start to see a lot of these elites start shifting and making it about the children and keeping them safe from predators. Guess what, folks? In July, look what Archwell Fugazi Public Charity is involved with. It should come as no surprise that Harry and Meghan are still on this mission to censor the internet and take away our First Amendment rights, as well as invade privacy rights. As it says here, the Archwell Fugazi Public Charity believes the technology in our families' lives should be safe by design. Safety by design is an approach to child online safety that prioritizes accountability, user empowerment, and transparency. Around the world, young people, parents, and advocates are building a better online world by doing the hard work of pushing for tech accountability and innovation developed with safety in mind, otherwise pushing for more regulation, aka guardrails. The Archwell Fugazi Public Charity is committed to uplifting their wins. This week, our partner at Heat Initiative announced their recent success in calling for meaningful safety improvements to Meta's platform, otherwise saying lobbying and pushing for policy and regulation. Okay, so whenever you hear this meaningful changes and improvements, know that it's policy that they're talking about. Following mounting pressure from parents, young people, and advocacy organizations like the Heat Initiative, Meta has announced a series of changes to better protect young people online using Instagram and Facebook. This win is a clear example of why raising awareness and demanding change is so important in the fight to keep our children safe online. Heat's campaign, which focused on both design changes to make Meta's spaces safe for children and predatory accounts targeting children on platforms, is the latest push to highlight Meta's failure to provide safe online spaces. Now, Meta has removed 600,000 accounts linked to predatory behavior, as well as 135,000 accounts dangerous to children. They also claim to have addressed design features, applying stricter filters to messages and comments for adult-run accounts that feature children and updating blocking and reporting features to streamline reporting. Since changes to reporting, more than 2 million accounts exhibiting predatory behavior have been blocked or reported. So let's talk about this Heat Initiative so-called project, because it's not really a nonprofit organization. It's a grassroots movement. So the Heat Initiative is backed by the Hopewell Fund, which is a nonprofit managed by the consulting firm called Arabella Advisors. This fund sits at the heart of a very powerful network of organizations funded by wealthy donors. In this network, often described as a left-leaning dark money operation, is now pushing to undermine digital privacy protections in the name of, you guessed it, child safety, though their true agenda runs far deeper. And I think many of you have seen in my previous videos covering some of that. But through its fiscal sponsorship, the Hopewell Fund incubates various politically aligned projects, including the Heat Initiative. This group has launched a high-profile campaign not only against Meta, but also with Apple, demanding that the tech giant undermine its robust encryption measures under the guise of combating child exploitation. You see, their tactics include full-page advertisements in major newspapers, aerial banners, and mobile billboards, all aimed at pressuring Apple to scan its users' private data. And we see that the UK wants to have backdoor access into Apple devices, and Apple is facing that pressure over there. But there is a demand coming from these elites to get rid of this end-to-end encryption. I mean, everything that we see from these people, despite their public facade of wanting child safety, just like the Archwell Fugazi Public Charities Parents Network, the HEAT Initiative's true agenda appears to be the erosion of end-to-end encryption, which is a cornerstone of digital privacy. You see, by framing their campaign as a moral imperative to protect children, they seek to normalize the idea that tech companies should have the ability to access and monitor private communications. And we see this going on in other countries like the UK, or look what happened in Brazil. They wanted access into, I think it was Telegram, to see what people were saying during the election. When we talk about Harry and Meghan and their friends, the Hopewell Fund's financial backers include prominent billionaires such as Swiss philanthropist Hans-Jörg Weiss, the guy that Harry sits on the board with at African Parks. We also have LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman, the guy who was friends with Sleazy E. You have eBay founder Pierre Omidyar. And, of course, we can't forget the devil himself, George Soros. In 2023, the Hopewell Fund reported total revenue of $157 million, with the majority coming from contributions. These funds are funneled through various entities within the so-called Arabella network, including the Windward Fund and the North Fund, which have been involved in political activities and have ties to the Democrats. Shocking. So this coordinated effort, as we see here now moving towards focusing on the kids, underscores a broader strategy, really, as Harry likes to say, to reshape the digital landscape, not for the sake of child safety, but to establish a framework where privacy now, as well as your free speech, is sacrificed in the name of so-called safety and security. The true beneficiaries of this agenda, of course, are those who are seeking to monitor and control the flow of information, and this was always Harry and Meghan's mission. Harry and Meghan know that they've been exposed in the censorship industrial complex, so now they've pivoted and they're making it about child safety and keeping the kids safe. In fact, you probably have noticed that everybody is talking about keeping the kids safe online. Nobody's talking about all those kids being trafficked. I mean, if you've been with me through this journey, you also see this sudden shift and pivot towards focusing on the children. No longer is Harry saying disinformation and misinformation is a humanitarian crisis. Now we've got to keep the kids safe. As this shadowy network continues to operate behind the scenes, it's crucial that we call it out. Especially when Harry and Meghan throw out other stuff to distract us, like nobody is talking about what Archwell Fugazi Public Charity is doing. And I think that is intentional. I mean, it's no secret there has been an intense investigation on this censorship industrial complex. So of course they're going to be on the down low about this now. They don't want any attention drawn to them for this. That's why I'm talking about it. And I know this is pissing you off, Harry and Meghan, but I really don't care. And there you have it, folks. These are the people that Harry and Meghan have been supporting, funding, hanging out with, all to undermine and take away our rights. And many say, oh, Harry and Meghan don't have any influence. Well, look at what Archwell is doing. Look at what's going on around the world, in the UK, in the EU, in Australia, in Canada. They're all pushing the same thing, which is, we have to protect the kids. We have to keep them safe. Well, nobody was thinking about the kids when the Biden administration was in play and all those children were being trafficked. Nobody was thinking about those kids. Over 300,000 of them. I personally think that a reason why they want this type of control is so they don't get caught. We really need to start talking about keeping children away from them. These elites have no business preying on these vulnerable kids, but they do it because they're sick in the head. A lot of them are. Zuckerberg had all the time to fix this, but he chose not to. Ask yourself this question, why? I'm sure this video will probably get banned, but if you can, share it with just one person. Let people know what these two are really up to. Like today, the news has been flooded about Meghan and Harry renewing some deal with Netflix, but it's not as lucrative. And then also Meghan sending a gift basket that looks like the box of vegetables that Meghan brought to the Harlem school children. I mean, like it's just nonsense, absolute nonsense. Nobody's talking about this other stuff that Meghan and Harry are doing. Now, let's talk about the situation with Ashley Biden's charity and Archwell Fugazi Public Charity's donation of $250,000. Now, we all knew about this, but I don't think anybody has talked about the supplemental that was submitted in April of this year. So let's take a look at this, and you guys tell me what you think is going on here. So this follow-up letter says, "Dear Mr. Malone, the National Legal and Policy Center, NLPC, hereby files this supplemental complaint against the Women's Wellness Space, WWS, whose president is Ashley Biden, to the one filed on March 12, 2025, to include an additional reporting violation alleged in this complaint. Namely, in addition to failing to report the $250,000 donation made by Prince Harry's and Meghan Markle's charity, the Archwell Foundation, in WWS's 2023 Form 990, NLPC has recently discovered that it also failed to report another $250,000 donation made in 2023 by the Silicon Valley Community Foundation. Yet, as noted in NLPC's earlier complaint, WWS reported donations and grants of only $170,296 for 2023. NLPC demands that the IRS audit Ashley Biden's charity and, at minimum, require her to amend her charity's 2023 Form 990 to comply with the law and impose other appropriate sanctions. The Silicon Valley Community Foundation is a multi-billion-dollar 501c3 charity based in San Mateo, California. As stated on its website, as a community foundation, SVCF brings together the resources and skills of donors, businesses, government, and community members to address the most pressing challenges in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties. Now, I'd like to interject here. Remember, this is the fund that issued the $10 million that nobody knows who it came from for Harry and Meghan's Archwell Fugazi charity. Despite focusing its charitable efforts on the local community in California, SVCF saw fit to make a $250,000 donation in 2023 to Ashley Biden's Women Wellness Space in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Isn't that interesting? Anyhow, it says, yet the Women's Wellness Spa Space 2023 Form 990 did not report this $250,000 donation from SVCF, as well as the $250,000 donation from the Archwell Fugazi Public Charity in 2023. WWS failed to report not only the aggregate amount of these substantial grants on the summary page of its 2023 form, but also failed to report them as individual grants on its Schedule B. Each grant that exceeds the $5,000 reporting threshold must be reported as required by IRS regulations. WWS did not even file a Schedule B with its Form 990. Moreover, the WWS reported on Part 12, Line 1 of its 2023 Form 990 that the accounting method it uses to report its contributions and expenses is the accrual method rather than the cash method. Consequently, even if WWS did not physically receive the $500,000 in grants from the Archwell Fugazi Public Charity and the SVCF until 2024, Because it uses the accrual method of accounting, those two grants, nevertheless, were required to be reported on WWS Form 990 for 2023, just as both Archwell and SVCF properly reported making these pledges in 2023, since they too use the accrual method of accounting. For the foregoing reasons, NLPC demands that the IRS investigate these apparent violations of IRS financial disclosure rules by Ashley Biden's charity and require that her 2023 Form 990 be amended to comply with IRS regulations and, if appropriate, impose other sanctions on the organization and Ms. Biden, since she signed the Form 990 as its president under the penalty of perjury. So here's what the issue is with this. So based off of what I understand, this accrual accounting that they have is not about the money that they receive in hand. It's about what was promised. And apparently, Archwell Fugazi Public Charity had given $150,000 of that $250,000, but had reported the full $250,000. So we don't know if the $170,000 that Ashley Biden has listed there includes that $150,000, because if so, that would mean that Archwell literally was standing up this shop for Ashley Biden. Now, were they doing that because of Harry's visa? Who knows? But then you have this other $250,000 coming from that Silicon Valley Community Fund, and it's nowhere listed. So we're talking about possibly $500,000 that was not reported. The question is, what makes up that $170,000? Yeah, we could give the benefit of the doubt and say, was this an honest mistake? Because let's say Ashley did receive, $20,000 from this fund, but she'll get the rest of it in the following year, depending on what the schedule is like. She could possibly say, well, I didn't know that you had to report the full amount in the year. That could be a defense just because it is her first year running this operation. But looking at the fact that Archwell gave $150,000 in 2023, or so they claim, I do think that the IRS also needs to be investigating Archwell because something doesn't smell right there either. And she only reported $170,000. That would mean that Archwell is literally behind this space. I mean, what are we looking at? Another front to, wash some things, if you know what I mean? Anyway, just thinking outside of my head right now. But it sure is a little funky, and there is no update as to what the status is on this, but I will continue to keep checking it. But if you have any additional thoughts on what's going on here, definitely drop those comments below. I'd love to see what you think about this. I found it really interesting that nobody is talking about this additional $250,000 that's missing. But what do you guys think about all of this? Definitely leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!
Such a fraud.